performance art, because this is a very, very new art form, and it is an art form which is extremely linked to the discourse of contemporary art itself. And in this way it is revolutionary, and it has a lot of potential, and I think now is the right time for a performance theatre. Most people actually just know the multimedia artists which are very close to the pop culture, like Laurie Anderson or Brian Eno, if you like so. And this sort of performance art got extremely popular. Also in event culture, for instance, if you think of Blue Man Group or some things like that. But this is only a very small part of the performance art itself, and not the most interesting from my perspective. So I like to say some more about what else is there and what is the actual background and the history and the specific vision of performance art. Multimedia art. It started in a time where the access to multimedia wasn't available for everybody. When we think of, for instance, my dear friend and fabulous artist named Hoover, she was a painter actually. She wanted to have, she saw, oh, I want to have my paintings moving. How can I make my paintings moving? And there was at that time not a single consumer's video camera available. So she discovered that there is a children's camera from Fisher-Price, and she used this only available consumer's video camera for children for her first video pieces. In this way you can see that her vision or her idea was the center of her video art, whether nowadays, where the access to all different kinds of media is so excessive that it is not easy to find your own vision in the wide field of possibilities here. For instance, everybody who has an iPhone and this UJam app can make a nice song within 5 minutes. And I like that, yes, I use it too, and there is a certain amount of creativity has to do with that. But in the end it isn't easy to tell, okay, what is the source of this creativity? You can say, okay, the ones who wrote the programs, they are then the source of the creativity. But also, in this wide field of possibilities, yes, we have to find new measures for what art really is, and what is involved if we say art, to differ it from, for instance, hobby or fun or events or whatever. Also, in the cultural evolution, like everyday culture, we can say that after industrialization took place, we have a whole lot of people with a whole lot of time, because we don't need to work so hard anymore to make our livings. And this way, there are so many people with so many hobbies, and as they have the hobbies, and as they enjoy their hobbies, they come up with sometimes fabulous skills. You know, some people can paint beautiful pictures, or they come up with new dance steps, and this is all good. But what is it then to make it differ from the artist? So we have to find new measurements for the artist. It cannot be only the accessibility of media, or the ability to deal with media, because everybody can, and it cannot also be the skillfulness, because many people have beautiful skills. So what else is involved in being an artist? And this question is clearly defined by the performance artist. This is a sentence by Marshall McLuhan, who was a philosopher and a cultural and social philosopher. So the medium itself is a message. This is making a point about the life as it is today. So we can think how many of the messages that are sent nowadays are really the messages that we want to send, or are they just, because we have the access and the platform to send them, like Twitter and SMS, and we are all sending messages all of the time, but there is not the constancy of the conscious mind of an artist. And if you then turn this sentence around, I like to do this sometimes, if you then say the medium is the message, or you ask yourself, turn it around and say, okay, the message is the medium. This is sort of what we have nowadays, you use the Twitter, okay, that's all of the message in the end. And but he had a great influence on the perception of contemporary arts, and for a good reason, because he was acknowledging something very real of our everyday life. He also came up with the idea of the global village, what we have today. With the internet, you could say that we have a global village, because all the globe, it got very small, through the modern media. But this is okay. This is culture. This is our everyday culture. But is this art? Is this art? Also, somebody who made a comment. This one, the 15 minutes of fame. That is Andy Warhol, who said nowadays, modern times, everybody's going to have 15 minutes of fame. Yeah, think of all the superstars, super talent, whatsoever, super shows, and think of the fame that everybody can have through the internet nowadays. Yeah, but is this art? Question. I like Andy Warhol, and I think Factory, and he had a lot of good ideas, and it is playful, it is joyful, and the whole of the pop art is making a comment about life as it is nowadays, and it is not presenting a vision of how life could be so much. And this is my problem that I have with pop art, because in general, and for some artists, if you think of Jeff Koons, the ex-banker, and how he prostitutes himself to the art market, I don't believe personally that this is art, because for me, the artist is a person who is standing outside the certain systems in order to be able to reflect on them, and in order to question them, and in order to maybe develop them in an artistic way. There is such a potential in triggering the evolution of man's mind, womankind's mind. It is immense, and you should be aware of that, and maybe have a look at this iconic sentence of art history. Joseph Beuys, yes. Every human is an artist. It is seemingly something like this, but it is obviously completely the opposite. Because here it is about fame, and here it is about art, questioning what art is and what a human being is. And if you turn this around, and then you ask yourself, okay, if I turn it around, you could say, if you are not an artist, you are not human. Implicating what all is involved in being an artist. In being an artist, taking your human abilities serious, taking your own conscious mind serious, taking your own ability to question social structures of the market, and so forth, serious. He also came up with this sentence: the capital of mankind are the human abilities. Now, human abilities, this is something entirely different from skills. It's not skills, it's human abilities, and this is something that we can develop. And notice also the capital. I personally believe that this is exactly what Karl Marx forgot to say in his fabulous The Capital book. This is why it didn't work. And then also Beuys came up with the idea of a social sculpture. A social sculpture, which is also something entirely different from the global village. Because the global village is what we have right now through the internet. The small, we know everything about everything. But the problem is, the global village isn't social at all. And in order to make it social, there is needed some artistry. And this is why the word sculpture is involved. This is really the piece of art that we are talking about. We are not talking about if you can make beautiful moves or if you can be a fabulous actor. We are talking about this. And this is like the center of performance art, why I like to come up with a performance theater. And now, how to do that? There was another very iconic sentence. It goes around the planet now. This is the moment where Marina Abramovic has her movie, and this is the sentence. The artist is present. Again, turn it around and say, if you're not present, you are not an artist. The artist is present. This is the way how you can, put the global village into a social sculpture through presence. And so, naturally, there are many different levels of presence. It's not just being here. Everything, and since the beginning of mankind and since the beginning of culture, men were using mankind, womankind, we were using tools. Also, we need tools in order to develop our presence, naturally. Somebody like George Ivanovich Gurdjieff, he came up with presence practice. Presence practice. So he presented some exercises which enable you to be more present, or in other ways to observe the amount of machinery, unconscious machinery that which is the common sense if we don't work, because there is a big amount of machinery. We have influences who form our consciousness, and the media is one aspect of it, but there are more aspects to it. And basically, if you want to observe what is really happening, you have to acknowledge that your consciousness has 3 different centers. In general, there are more centers, but the 3 biggest ones are the mind, the thinking, the emotional, the feeling, and the sensual, and the physical, and the acting. Gurdjieff, he was an artist himself. And this is very important for me, because if you just meditate, which is also a transformative process, you do this for yourself. Because you sit in the here and now, and yes, it is radiating, and this is doing something. But if you want to communicate, if you want to be able to do something, you have to include the next following moment, at least, in your presence of the here and now. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do something. So, Gurdjieff came up with the idea of the 4th way. It means that Gurdjieff said there are ways to become more present. There's the way of the yogi, the way of the monk, the way of the hermits, and there must be a 4th way. And the fourth way is you have to be able to be doing your conscious work amongst everyday people in everyday life. You know, include it to your daily practice and include it to your being. And this is the fourth way. This is the way of the artist. This is, in my perspective, the necessity, what we have to do as artists, because nobody else can trigger that freely as the artist, evolutionary conscious processes. Because all other, I mean, we were all fighting for liberty. We didn't want to work in a factory, didn't we? Yeah? But why? Why? And what are we doing then with our liberty?